Happy Friday! Welcome to the Entrepreneur's Journey. We are live. I am the heart and Martin is the brain. Did I get it right? I think I did. Oh,
Good morning.
good morning. How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Good. I'm better, especially after that music. I just love it. Whoa. Okay,
That's right.
enough singing. All right. So we have over 1,000 entrepreneurs turning in or soon to be entrepreneurs. And so thank you so much for continuing to join us. Of course, say hello if you're here. Can you believe that we're July 21st? Holy cow. And Martin, what are we going to be talking about today? And I love this because when you want to dive in, it's like, where do you start? So take us
Yeah.
away.
So today we're going to talk about something that is like near and dear to my heart. I really, really love talking to people about this because that's the type of questions you get when you say to anybody that you're like in business, in the business environment. They go, "Well, what do I need to start?" Right?
Right.
Or do I need this to start? They're like usually ask very specific questions, and I love telling people, "No, you don't need that." It's one of
I
my
think that's
favorite things. That's
I
one of
think
my
that's
favorite
that
things to say.
little stubborn part of you, right?
Oh, I
No,
just love saying, "No, you don't
don't
need
do
that.
it. Yeah.
Don't you don't need that." Right? Where did you get that information? You don't need that. And it's an interesting thing because the internet's fantastic, right? The fact that we can have access to pretty much all the information ever created, as long as you know where to look, is just the best thing ever. At the same time, it's dangerous because you can get a lot of really crappy information
Right.
and just completely deviate you from the path and take you on a tangent, and sometimes you'll never to
Exactly.
return.
Yeah, because
And
it can put fear in you. It's just like, "This is too much. I'm out."
for sure, and we'll get to that, right? But that's the reason people quit. The reason people quit is that they compound the little bits of effort and the little layers of effort into building something even before they see the first result. And by the time they see their first result or they don't, and it happens to be disappointing, they relate to the thing that they've been building as this like huge stack of risk. So
Mhm.
it's easier to say, no, maybe I should just not do all that, right? And by then you're what? If you're lucky, $1,000 in. If you're not lucky, $65,000 in. And that's that's part of the problem. Part of the problem is the preparing to be in business is expensive. If you don't know what you're doing,
Yeah, if. Mhm. Mhm.
preparing to be in business is really, really expensive. And you get a lot of stuff out there that says you need to have this and you need to have that, you need to prepare. So for the first time, I'm going to show something in in the show. Let's see if it works. Yeah, here we go. So someone wants to go and start a business, right?
Oh
Their
my
logic
god.
is their logic is, I should probably go and see what the Small Business Administration has to
Oh,
say
shit. I'm
about
looking at the
starting
top
a business.
3.
It's
Oh,
rid- it's freaking
oh,
ridiculous, right?
sorry. Yeah,
And the
I'm out.
Small Business Administration goes, you should conduct market research. I mean, that's that's ridiculous on its face. It
Yeah,
says write your business plan.
I've
Like
never written a
spoiler
business plan.
spoiler, you don't need a business plan. I'll tell you later on when you need one if you do, but you do not need a business plan. Not in the strictest sense of the word, like all those old school documents with like a executive summary and 79 pages of uh, conjecture. Um, then they go on to say you need to fund your business. Now, that's partially true, right? You at least need to know how you're going to pay for stuff, right? Like if there's materials you need, or if there's a mechanism of access you need, yeah, you're going to have to figure out how to pay for that, for some of that stuff. But that's very different than funding your business. If you read
Yeah,
that, it actually says investors, and it's just
angel. Yeah,
it's
yeah,
nonsense.
right.
Okay, pick your business location. I mean, I think that somebody in the late 50s wrote this.
You're having so much fun right now.
It's just, it's just bonkers, right? Pick your business location. I mean, other than, I'll be doing this from home. That's as far as you need to be figuring things out. Choose a business structure. Now, again, that's partially true. But when it comes to starting a business, and I want to pause here and make a distinction, there's a very different thing uh, called starting a business and being in business. Starting a business is something that requires a lot of experimentation, and it requires proof of concept. It requires, like, should I even be doing this type of activities? And so when these people are talking about choosing a business structure, I mean, look, yeah, you will have to, right? You will have to at some point make a decision. Okay, am I running this thing as a sole proprietor? Am I going to, like, scale it up a little bit and make it an LLC or something like that? You will have to get to that point, and you'll have to get educated on that. But is that anywhere in the vicinity of the conversation surrounding starting a business? No, not even, not even a little bit.
So this seems like a great guide for someone that is very analytical, that is an engineer and maybe has developed a product that he wants to sell. He's like, check these boxes. Even
Yeah, and
though it might be too much.
even then, it might be too much, right? Because if
Mhm.
you're an engineer that has developed a product, the first thing you need to do is you need to go and have a couple conversations with potential people who would buy it,
Right,
just to see what they say, right? Just to see
right.
if you're thinking here and they're thinking here. But yeah, I mean, maybe if you have established for yourself an entire distribution system already and want to enter a market, that will potentially be the level of this. So
Mhm,
the fact that this
mhm.
is labeled small business administration is kind of shocking to me, right? It should be labeled jump right into mid-sized business administration.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, you
So
know, choosing your corporate structure, we talked about choosing your business name. Yeah. So look, that's going to be important. Having a name. Yeah, that's exactly what it is, right? Like, yeah, I'm going to start the town's only gas station. But yeah, you will need a business name, but again, right, the type of things that you will need that name for are not even in play yet if you have
Mhm,
not ever sold a thing, right? If you've
mhm,
never ever sold a product, service, or anything. So I feel like almost like we should have conversations about a nomenclature of
mhm,
business, right?
mhm.
And maybe call starting a business something else, or like the process of developing a business be maybe the next bit, because there's so much that goes into the jumping in part,
Yeah.
right?
Well,
And I feel like
yeah.
that's where people get really, like, stuck.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I think maybe the first step needs to say, "Just do it. Just
Well,
jump."
one of the things I say to people all the time is this: look, the list of things that you don't need is probably significantly larger than the things you actually need
Yeah, and
to start.
we can use those things to hide behind.
Well,
Um,
and that's how it ends up happening a lot, right? Like, I have a lot of talk, a lot of conversations with people who say things like, "Oh yeah, I'm starting my business and this and that." And I'm like, "Yeah, that's great. How long have you been starting your business?" 2 years. I've been building my business for 2 years. Great.
Right,
How many of
right,
those have you sold? Oh,
right.
nothing yet. I haven't gotten my registration back from the state. Right.
Yeah,
Things like that, where you go, okay,
yeah.
well, how much is that costing you? Right. So by the time they sell the first thing, what, they're gonna chip $100 off of the $4,000 that they have into the thing already.
Mhm,
And that sensation of climbing a never-ending mountain is the thing that's going to have them quit.
mhm,
Okay, is the thing that's going to have somebody just dump it.
mhm.
They go on to say, register your business, get a federal tax ID, apply for licenses and permits, and open a bank account. So, out of all those things, the only thing that you should do eventually when you're starting is open the bank account
But I will say you need your EIN number to do that.
in order to open a bank account, right? So
Yeah.
it'll be
Yeah.
obvious what you need in order to
Yeah.
do that. And EIN is, like your business's social security, essentially, right? Like an
Yeah.
identifier that you use to pay that you pay taxes on behalf of the business. And by then you will have sold at least $400 worth of stuff. By then you will have learned how to keep track of your income and expenses inside of some sort of system. And you know, that's exactly
Exactly.
it, right?
That's
That's
what happens.
that
Mhm.
is exactly it.
Yeah. Or I will get, I'll get to hide behind the pretty things.
Yeah,
I
I'll get
love
rid
the
of that
pretty
thing because I hate
things.
it so much. I'll get rid of it. Uh, but
The
but that's
logo, the you
Well,
know
yeah, and we'll start talking about that because I also compiled a list of myths that
Mm.
that I that I find in my conversations with people who are starting businesses. And you just brought that one up, so might as well let's talk about it. Here's a myth, right? And you know, I feel like today I'm just going to be bashing on people, but
I know, and loving it.
well, I
Look
mean,
how look how giddy he is.
I don't know. But so I don't know if you've seen the huge influx of commercials for a brand called Taylor Brands.
No,
If you're
I
anywhere in
don't have
social
tape.
if you were
Okay,
anywhere in social media, no, this is social media
okay.
commercials. They know who they're
Taylor
going
brand.
after.
Okay.
If Taylor Brands has commercials that literally begin like this. Do you want to start a business? Taylor Brands will build you your logo, your website, and it'll build your LLC, right? Like, so they literally go into start a business equals logo, website, LLC.
Mhm. Mhm.
And it's incredibly deceiving. It's incredibly like to tell anyone that they are in business because they have a logo, a website, and an LLC name is almost just flat out negligent,
Mhm. Mhm.
right? And
Yeah.
and that advertisement is happening in places where a lot of people who are being presented the ad are literally looking for that, right? So
Mhm.
it's just
Right.
very
Right.
it's very intentional. It's very
Right.
intentional that they're talking to.
They're packaging it up
They're
beautifully with a bow on it,
right.
which, as if you're going into business, like I can see the intrigue because those are things that you want depending on your business. Like
So
not every business needs a
for sure.
website, which gosh, how lucky are you if you don't because that's a
Well,
whole other animal to manage and
but the
change and update and
the thing is, you will, right? You will if you build something that has an appropriate size. You
mhm.
will need a
Mhm.
website. By the
Mhm.
time you do, the business will be of a certain size.
Okay, so let's take my business for example.
Mhm.
So I felt it was important that we had a website. Like
Right.
my biggest challenge is people don't know that espresso bar catering even exists out
Exist.
there.
Yes. So let's go back a little bit in time, right? When
Okay.
did you start?
Oh 07.
Okay.
Great time to start a business.
Just right in the cusp of the disaster. Okay. So
Yeah.
around '07, okay, starting a business that Yellow Pages had already died off.
Oh yeah, I wasn't even
It was not even a
considering
conversation.
that.
It was not even a conversation,
No.
right?
Uh-uh.
Because if you push it back 10 to 12 years, back then the conversation was
Mhm.
like, if you're not in the Yellow Pages, you're not in business.
Mhm. Mhm.
Later on, it changed into if you don't have a website, you're not in business.
Mhm.
And the thing is that what you were trying to do from the beginning, right? You bought a plan for it,
Mhm.
and it was like, okay, well, I need to do uh, mobile coffee cart catering.
Mhm.
At that point, if you had tapped into your direct network and
Mhm.
sold 20 events,
Okay, good point.
you would have done all of that without ever needing a website.
You're right. He's right. Frick.
And by then,
Yeah.
you would have been like,
Yeah.
okay, this is
Now I
actually
have
a
some more
real thing.
money.
This
Yeah.
is
Oh,
actually a real thing,
God,
right?
you're right.
I actually can I even have money to pay for a freaking website?
I'm so glad we brought this up as example because I'm not so sure I believed you. Um, you love that too, don't you? Because you're
It's my
right. So
everyday. Yeah.
my mom worked. We knew pharma was an industry for a niche market, and my mom worked in a medical office. They all loved her. She worked with all the pharma reps,
Yep.
so she compiled a stack of business cards this thick of people that she personally talked to and said, "Is this something you might be interested? They're moving, blah blah blah." So you're right. Like all of our business came from that and grassroots marketing and then went into repeat business and um you're right. We didn't need the website ASAP to start. You are correct and I wanted to prove you wrong. So,
Well, I mean, look, even if you didn't have a networking in, right? Because you did in a way. But let's say
yeah.
that you didn't have a networking in and you built a website. Let's say that Taylor Brands got to you and you went, okay, I gotta build a website. So what? Building a website is like building a cabin in the middle of the Sahara Desert,
Mhm. Mhm.
right? There's nobody going in there.
Yeah.
Even if you built it, the chances of it being found organically are
Yeah.
like minimal,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
You need to figure out a way to send people there, right? And probably at that point was happening in conversations.
Mhm.
It was like you would actually meet with someone and say, "Oh yeah, by the way, this is our website. If you need more information." It's
Mhm.
sort of like a digital brochure,
Right, but we had the digital brochure.
but you could have had a paper brochure.
Right. We had a paper brochure that was also digital that we
It
email
was it
people
was the same
constantly.
thing, but it
Yeah.
was the same thing, right?
Mhm.
You could have had conversations that that would have accomplished the exact same thing, right? For centuries, business has been conducted over the phone.
Okay, so question for you. So, what are people's impression, and if anybody's listening and has some feedback on this, of a company and they're gung ho and they're super excited and you try and look them up and there's no website. Now,
Yes,
I do have a persona about that because
yes.
there's companies that I've looked up that I found interesting or heard about
Mhm.
and I couldn't find them on the website and
And you're like,
I'm just going to tell you my discriminatory feelings.
you'll dismiss him.
Yeah,
Yeah. You know why? Because they didn't tell you ahead of time that they were a new business. They didn't tell you ahead of time that they're starting.
I
Your
guess it's
Candace's
a
question goes to exactly the same thing. Is it
yeah.
crucial for credibility to potential customers client? Only if they found you organically, or only if they're like you're part of a list that they were given and they're comparing you side to side. But if your potential customer or client is somebody that you have a 1 degree separation with, right? That is a person that you can talk to.
Right. Yeah, but you are going to be losing out on those people that compare you side to side cuz
If they find you organically, yes. But
yeah.
again, by the time anybody's finding you organically, you should have been doing whatever you're doing for a while.
Mhm.
Like I
Mhm.
really, this is again my favorite topic because it has so much nuance. But it's I really want to be clear so that I'm heard clearly. I'm not saying you never need a website.
Right.
I'm saying, do you need a website in order to start a business? The answer is an absolute no.
Well, let's talk about you for a minute.
Yeah,
You don't have a website.
I do not.
And but your business
Works.
works
I
and I mean it's what percentage is your referral referral based business come from?
100%,
100% percentage wise?
100%.
I didn't say that
At
right.
this at this point, I'm on the advantage side of the thing, you know. Sure, it took time to get there, but at this
Right,
point,
right.
I get to tell people, look, I don't work with people that didn't get referred to me.
Mhm,
You know, I'm not saying that this is the way to go. You
mhm.
know,
Right, and you're in a consulting business.
as a consulting, it's all relationship based, right? I really
Mhm,
need this face time with people. They actually need to learn me and they need to
mhm,
trust me. I'm not selling a product, right? I'm like,
mhm.
it's a little different,
It is different. Yes, for sure.
but but I didn't need it to start, right?
Mhm,
And I definitely didn't need it to begin talking to people about me being their consultant, even when I was the one reaching out to them.
mhm, mm. Did did you mention it?
Well, what I used to mention is like, look, I don't have a website, but if you go to my LinkedIn, I have 60 recommendations with people that I actually work with.
So you
Guess,
say that.
guess what? LinkedIn is free.
Yeah, right. Well, and, if you don't have to get on the website bandwagon or get on it early, you're saving yourself from the, "I gotta
Well,
post new content, and we gotta, add words and la, 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 la," and it's
but
just
and all of those things are important. And
and they are important.
when you have a certain size, you need it, right?
Mhm.
Because you've not only have completely reached the boundaries of your network, right? Everybody knows who you are and what you do in your network now. You really
Yeah.
need to get to reach people who haven't met you yet, right?
So what size are we talking?
I don't think it's about size, Nat. I think
Okay.
it's about whether there is a network to tap into or not. Right? If you
Okay.
know 10 people and those 10 people and their people already know you and what you do, you are pretty much tapping out, right?
Oh, I see what you're saying.
You're
Okay.
needing somewhere outside of that to go to.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
that's a good measure for somebody trying to figure this out,
Mhm.
right?
For someone who loves marketing though, like, I can meet people then then the next set of people and their doors that open and da da da, so
But
I could
again, you
go
know,
for a while.
and I started this topic by saying that I love the times we're in because
Mhm.
there's just so many free resources that you can use in lieu of a lot of the things that people were doing before, right? I really don't want to spend a whole hour on websites,
On
but
website, sorry, I
but
know we went on a big tangent.
but that's the thing, you know, like, you know, Facebook pages are free and you can literally send somebody to a Facebook page and it looks kind of like a website and it has a lot of interactivity things. It has
Photos.
it has FAQs, it has a a way to have a chat bot that answers most frequently asked questions and looks like engagement. I mean, in some cases, a really manicured Facebook page will operate better than most websites that you will buy for $2,000 to $3,000. And
Mhm.
again, I'm not
Mhm.
saying you don't need it. I'm
Mhm.
saying you can start something without
Mhm.
even having the Facebook page,
Mhm.
right? What you need, right? And going to go back to that thing, like the
Yeah.
list of things you don't need, right? We kind
Yeah.
of covered a bunch from the
Right.
SBA, but
Right.
the one thing you need is a sale. You need a sale. You need to demonstrate that whatever it is that you are out there trying to exchange for money is exchangeable for money, right?
And this
As
is
long as you can
something
prove that to yourself,
yeah.
you are on your way to being in business.
And this is something that entrepreneurs are really good at. We're usually the creative people and we sell before we have the shit together to do it. And I know that's what we did.
Yes.
We've talked before about that, like when we added the omelet bar, our first food option. It was
Yes.
like, we've got it booked in
And
3 weeks. Let's get this figured out.
we got to figure it out. Yeah, it's a very entrepreneurial thing to do, to sort of throw your hat over the ring, right? And have it figured out in the background. But I want to make sure that I like that you brought that up because it brings me up to another myth, that there's
Mm,
some sort of like inherent entrepreneurship about some people. Look, people have talents, and that's great. There's certain people who are really great at making relationships.
Mhm.
They kind of suck at managing money,
Mhm.
right? There's people who are fantastic at managing money and they're like deep introverts, right? Like
Mhm.
all the things that need to be in place for you to run a business, right? For you to be an entrepreneur, an active entrepreneur, uh, half of them you're not good at,
Mhm.
right? And the other half you are.
Mhm.
And, and within those two halves, there's some things that are like come easier to you than others. And knowing yourself is more important than
Mhm.
having been born with something.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, if you can accept your strengths and your weaknesses, you are so far ahead.
You're already on your way to making something happen for yourself.
Yeah.
Right? Because if you know where you're going to need that help, right? If you know what are those things you're going to have to outsource at some point, maybe, or if you know what things you need to pay extra attention because they're not your forte at the beginning.
Yeah.
Right? If you're kind of like a born relationship making person,
Yeah.
you probably don't need a huge marketing strategy plan, right? You're probably going to figure it out as you go. But there's a really good chance that that person is not awesome at putting things in order or creating a
Mhm.
standard for themselves or like a
Mhm.
duplicable ability to constantly
Mhm.
go back and do the same thing or maybe even
Mhm.
introduce somebody else who's capable of having the same level of conversations,
Yeah,
right?
and, as we talked about in our last podcast when we were talking about E the Myth Revisited, it's also very important to know your strengths and to keep yourself in that strength box so
Yeah.
that you can that just the dopamine levels, are happening and you need that. This is great. This is fun. I'm in
Yep.
my element, that kind of thing to keep you going too. It's very important that you don't bog yourself down with the things that you aren't good with because that will affect you mentally as well.
Yeah, for sure. And so here's the thing, right? The level of clarity you need in order to start a business, and this is another place where there's potential pitfalls about it. People think that what they need is clarity about things like their market, right? Or things like
Mhm.
their competitors. Like there's nothing funnier to me than watching somebody who hasn't launched anything who's doing a lot of competitor research. Okay,
Mhm.
because you're not even you're not even registering for anybody yet, and yet you're worried about your competitors, right?
Well, and we just found out a neat fact when we're looking at numbers with Pacific Perks that was kind of eye-opening to this fact. You always have told me, like, I can get my feathers ruffled up about competitors, but and then I think, well, I'm not in insurance and I'm not a real estate broker. So, can you imagine what that would be like? Yeah. So, right, perfect. Look at you just knew my
Oh,
thought.
I'm
The
oh,
mark.
I'm ready. I'm ready for you.
So, okay, now I'm scared. So, we looked at the number of clients Pacific Perks worked with in 2022.
Yep.
So, we might have done 10 events with ABC Company, but we count them once as one
Right.
company.
Yep.
And then we looked at the number of businesses in that territory
Yep.
and we service, are you ready, everyone? 0.6% of the businesses in our area.
Yeah. So you have built a successful company where you can sustain yourself, your family, and now expand into a franchising system by having zero point 0.6 market penetration. Okay. So
That's just so eye-opening to me. I mean,
there
I've always found, like, there's so much
is
candy that around, there's
there's
just
enough business for everyone.
yes. Yes.
And that's another place, and you know me. I mean, I'm a little paranoid. I'm always thinking, well, who benefits from this narrative that the market is too saturated, it's too risky, you shouldn't start. I always worry about that. Like who's pulling those strings on that narrative? But neither here nor there. Uh,
It's just that ego trying to protect you or
I
your ego
guess
from your friends trying to protect you that
I
I mean,
I
but
hope it's that benign. But that's the thing, like,
yeah.
you know, when it comes to the opportunity size, that shouldn't worry you. If you're at a starting level, the size of opportunity available shouldn't worry you. Now, here's the thing, right? You want to make a distinction between things that are mainstream and things that are inherently disruptive. A couple of episodes ago, we talked about the rate of failure of businesses, and
Mhm.
it was like nowhere near what people say it is, except when it came to very disruptive technologies, right? Of a disruptive products. If something is completely new and completely different, completely original, you have a higher risk, right? Because human beings, we're still we still live in tribes. We still
Mhm.
want to buy what everybody wants to buy,
Mhm.
and that would be the only caveat to this saturation of the market thing. But yeah, you definitely want to, if you're building a product that is a exactly the same product that's already out there, or a variation, or a slight improvement, or just a different color of something that's already existing, you're going to be okay. What you need to worry about is the act of putting it in front of people and showing them that there's enough benefit for them to take you up on it.
And seeing it through all the
Right.
way.
So like I said, there's a ton of these that I
Okay,
prepared.
let's
But
go.
there's a couple that I want to make sure we cover. Okay.
Okay.
This one is really important to me.
Mm.
The amount of bullshit that's out there in the
Who's passionate now?
in the internet about you read entrepreneurial stories, right? You go back and read, you know I hate the guy, so that's probably why I bring him up a lot. But like, you read Elon Musk's thing, and they all sound like one day they had a brilliant idea and they dropped everything and they just jumped 100% into it, and they couldn't sleep, eat, or think anything but their idea, and that's how they made it. And look, I mean, first of all, if you're modeling yourself after billionaires, you're probably doing it wrong. And second of all, that's not true. I can
Mhm.
guarantee you that those guys
Mhm.
had normal lives, sometimes normal
Mhm.
jobs, and sometimes,
Mhm.
they were like working this thing on the weekends, at night.
Mhm. Mhm.
And that's the way to do it. The way to
Mhm.
do it, especially if you haven't proven a concept yet, right? If
Mhm.
you haven't figured out whether there will be uh, an opening for whatever it is that you're trying to sell or provide, you probably don't want to let go of whatever you currently have. That's only going to make that other one thing harder, and it's only going to make it easier for you to quit when things get hard.
Mhm.
Right? What you want to do is you want to support the thing you're doing by making it easier, right? So if
Mhm.
you have a job, I don't know, uh, as a server,
Mhm.
and that is paying your bills and paying your card note and paying whatever it is that you have, and allowing you to spend time developing your, you know, handmade items business, that's the way to do it.
Mhm.
It's not the other way around.
Mhm.
Dropping this thing and putting yourself in survival mode is not going to do it. There's very few
Mhm.
people who naturally behave better when that's the case. There's some people who do. Some people who are so crisis driven that, if they put themselves in such peril, yeah, they will
Mm.
emerge as superheroes. Not only that
Mm.
will not only that will create a bit of a dangerous pattern, but it will also be a huge risk that you should probably not
Mhm.
take, because things happen and things go wrong,
Mhm.
right? So I really want to make sure that anybody considering starting something or in the earliest stages, if they have a lifeline somewhere, they can hold it. There's no shame on
Mhm.
that. They're no less
However,
they're not less passionate about what they're doing.
however, you need to balance your life because you can't sustain that life,
They can't forever.
You can't forever, for sure.
Yeah.
Now, I'm laughing as you're talking because you're talking about crisis and you're talking about people that do well in those situations. And I was thinking, well, we did have a crisis and this was all in or
Hmm.
bust. And so we didn't have a sustaining income. We had some income that we knew was coming in monthly. So there you go. But you've always said that sometimes I need to have something to dip my hands into or I can cause a little
Cause some
trouble for
trouble.
myself.
Yeah, and again, this is one of those where knowing yourself comes in handy. You
Mhm.
definitely want to know if you're one of those people who manufactures crisis for yourself such that you can motivate yourself, right?
Mhm.
And again, as long as you have some level of control over it, knock yourself out, right? But most people will be doing it because they read something or they watch
Mhm.
somebody tell their little life story that is being modified by 29
Mhm.
publicists by now, right? And it is just basically
Yeah.
talking about, you know, how how they just abandoned all sense of self in order to make something happen.
Yeah.
And that's not the way.
Okay, so question for you. So I'm talking to a lot of people who are in the corporate world
Mhm.
and a lot of people that I talk to and that are interested in a possible franchise with us.
Yes.
They want to get out of the corporate world. They want to kind of own their future,
Right.
a little bit of, flexibility, all that. So what's your advice to when to make that transition?
Yeah. Well, so you're talking about two different things. Buying into a franchise system, right?
Mhm.
That is a business that has already a proven background,
Mhm.
is something that you can do a little more intensely, right? You can actually save up so that you get to the place where you can, pay your franchise fee and all that, and then jump in.
Okay, so okay, so once you're bought into the business, then you're
Yeah,
saying in that because it's a proven system that
you're
you
not.
can cut off
Yeah,
the other one and jump in.
you're not building it, right? Like now, here's the thing:
Right.
there's a lot of people who do the franchise thing by talking to their current job, turning their position into a part-time position and going to start a franchise, right? And
Mhm.
working on it as quickly as they can so that they can just make that transition
Mhm.
seamless. A
Mhm.
lot of scenarios are going to be unique, right? But if
Yeah.
you're building your own,
Yeah. That's a
you
whole different
really
deal.
you really want to build it on a
Mhm.
way that you have a
Mhm.
certain clarity as to like, okay, what does replacing your income look like,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Doggy.
This has never happened. Hold on.
Who's he after? So, you know, I want to make a point of clarity on that. So if somebody is, you know, selling, I don't know, handmade goods, right?
You're talking our Etsy people.
Yeah, let's say that Etsy people, right? Uh, I would caution them to not think of that as a business until it has like some serious potential for scale. That is what's
Mhm.
called a side biz, right? That's a side business.
Mhm.
And as long as it's a side business, it can be a great supplement for your income. It's unlikely that with yourself, right? If you need to make something and sell it, right?
Mhm.
Because that is
Mhm.
a finite number of hours that you can devote to that, unless you're
Right.
like actively working on improving that process so that you're like really shaving time off on the time that it takes to build the things. There's unlikely that they'll get to a place where they'll just completely dropping one thing for the next, unless they're like actively working on teaching other people how to do it, etc. Like, so scale
Yeah.
is the thing that's going to make a difference in
Yeah.
in somebody building something like that.
And, that's what I love about Pacific Perks, 'cause that it is scalable and that I don't have to be there to operate it. Like, of course, in the beginning, I started,
Right.
front lines, first on all carts. And then I haven't done that in a very, very long time. And so it's nice because I can go on vacation and money's still not being made.
Right.
So that is one thing to consider when you're, choosing an avenue. But in that scenario you're talking about, it's a side business, you've got
Yep.
income, and you're usually fulfilling your passion and get a lot of kudos from and
Right.
good feelings from what you're doing.
Exactly. Exactly. So there's a couple more that we need to talk about.
All right.
I really want this one to sink in.
Mm.
You know, there's this notion there. It's kind of similar to the like born entrepreneur concept, that networking and sales are only for extroverts, or that they're only the only ones who can do it well. And the thing is that, they may have an easier time doing it, right? Or they may have an affinity to the activity itself, right? They may enjoy it, but they're certainly not the only ones who can do it.
Right. And do you
Uh,
think you need to have a passion for your product or service in order to be successful?
Passion is a dangerous word for me. Like
Mhm.
I like saying that you need to be serious about something, right?
Mm.
Because passion sometimes get bordered on obsession, right?
Oh,
And
okay.
and I just want to make sure that people understand that you don't need to absolutely love the existence of the thing you're thinking is a good fit for the market, right? Because you could actually have an affinity that's sufficient for the idea, for the concept, for the what it does for people, right? So you don't need to love your product. You need to make sure that it's actually a match for a need that exists, right? A real need that
Yeah.
exists out there. So if you can find that, you can find that there's a need, and you can find that you can fulfill it, you have the makings of a business.
Okay.
And
So how does an engineer challenging you?
yeah, well, no, I actually agree. Like, you can hate it and still be good at it.
You have to
See,
have a personality, wouldn't you say? You have
no,
to have a
You don't even
alright.
you don't even need a personality for it, right? What you need is clarity around what the thing that you're talking about
Okay.
does,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
See,
So,
I'm all emotion and feeling and
which is awesome because it works for you, right?
right.
But if you're not, I mean, I don't think it's a secret that I don't love interactions with people, right? And and I do really well in them, right?
Good
Because
point.
I've developed a way to do it in a way that leaves me in a in an advantageous position.
Mhm.
I just ask questions. I'm a
Yeah.
question asker, right? I show up and I
Yeah.
ask all sorts of questions.
And
So
people
when did
love
you
to be asked
so
questions.
when did
Most
you
people.
start your business, right? What is the hardest thing about doing that? Like, when did you know that that was your thing? I mean, it's very simple to ask
Mhm.
enough questions for the
Mhm.
other person to A, think that you're an expert in whatever area you're discussing,
Mhm.
and B, for them to start trusting you with the answers.
Well, and they feel like you're seeing and hearing them,
Exactly.
and you get that. You're part of their you see what they go through, you're hearing it. Yeah.
Exactly. And you really don't need to love those interactions in order to be good at them.
Alright.
You
Wow.
need to build up a little bit of material, right? So you need to know, how do you speak about the thing that you're promoting.
Mhm.
What is it that is intended to do? How do
Mhm.
you match it with people who would potentially need it? How do you identify people who potentially need it?
Mhm.
Eventually, you'll do it enough that you'll find a type of person who really, really likes your stuff, who really, really thinks that stuff is good. And then all you have to do is go meet all of their friends,
Mhm.
right? Or have that person become an advocate for you.
Mhm. A
Which brings me
referral
to a,
partner. Yeah.
which brings me to another thing, right? One of the things that I find people freak out about the most is this: they freak out about how to price themselves.
How to
They
price? Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
they freak out about, like, I need to just figure out exactly what my pricing is, and I need to be a good offer, but not too low. Like, and they just really have a lot of concerns about this.
And then
And
feeling comfortable talking about your
and
pricing, like,
talking
that's
about the price.
huge.
And everybody gets a little too bent out of shape
Mhm,
when it comes to money
mhm,
conversations, right? To begin
mhm.
with, it's uncomfortable. So what
Yeah.
I say is, you can't stop caring about it, but you should care a little less about
Mhm,
your pricing strategy when you're starting up. Okay.
mhm,
Nobody gives a shit about your pricing integrity when you have 3 clients,
mhm,
when you've had 7, right?
mhm,
Yeah, we care about Nike's pricing integrity,
mhm.
right? But we don't care about your own individual pricing integrity when you're trying to sell me, I don't know, plumbing services.
So you mean one person may
So
get this deal and another person gets this deal?
exactly. And you can say to people, look, I'm starting, right? So I'm trying to figure this out, or I'm trying to build my portfolio, or I'm trying to build a referral base. So I'll give you a great deal. That is totally fine. Like
Yeah.
I said, if you happen to get lucky and identify that person that's like so perfect for your fit, that should be the guy that you do services for free all the time.
Oh, yeah.
Guy or gal who never stops talking about your thing, right?
Absolutely.
In my 20 something years of doing this, I've had a lot of people that I've done a lot of consulting hours for free
Mhm. Yes, you have.
because they talk about me. They constantly talk about me. They tell everybody who'll like be within earshot that I've done something that helped them.
And to that point, sometimes we like, "Oh, but I'm missing out on money if I don't charge that." And then you go, "Wait a minute. They're
Exactly.
talking about me. What is that value?" And then you're like, "Oh, crap." Like, no brainer, but you
That
have to
is
kinda yeah,
Yeah, that is invaluable, right?
invaluable.
When you can turn somebody into an advocate, that is literally invaluable. You cannot measure that. There's no market measure for the advantage of having somebody passionately discuss what you do with somebody else, right?
Yeah,
Because
yeah,
they're being perceived as impartial. The other person is like, wow, I guess I should try this. Right?
yeah,
I get calls half the times from people that I have trouble placing, and once I
mhm,
dig, it's somebody that I haven't talked to for 6, 7 years that referred me, right?
yeah,
And that happens all the time because,
yeah,
again, at some point I went, you know what? Sure, I'll meet with you and I'll tell you
mhm.
what I think.
And this goes on the flip side of things once you're in business. If you make a mistake, because everybody will, shit
Yes.
will happen, and you go, "God, you know, I'm gonna do this for free for them," and it just, like, it's pulling at my heart, and I'm
Yep.
leaving money on the table, and I don't know if, it's too much, and then you go, "Okay, what is the like, if we see this through, one, they can feel like they got more than taken care of, and they, respect and appreciate the hell out of us,
Well,
or they're absolutely pissed, and they talk about it with everyone else on how it was dealt with."
yeah.
And you go, "No brainer. I'll take option A."
And that's what bigger businesses do really well, right? The ones who do it
Mhm,
well, right? Nicer restaurants, you go, hey, this glass looks a little dirty. And they come back at the end of the meal and say your meal's comped,
mhm.
right?
Exactly.
That kind of
Above and
thing.
beyond. You
That
you left and you were happy the glass was dirty.
Well, you're not only happy, you're talking about it now, right? You're always
Mhm.
talking about how amazing that experience was. They didn't even do that. They didn't even charge me. That's why that's why Amazon does the easiest returns you can imagine. That's why Costco does the easiest returns you can
Oh,
imagine.
love
Right? Like
it.
you bring the thing and you just barely got it into the box and you're like, sorry, I need to return this. They'll be like, absolutely, no problem, no questions asked. Right? And you keep going back and you keep going. You pay
Mhm.
them for a membership to shop at their store. Right? It's ridiculous. But but that's the type of thing that a lot of people starting out miss
Mhm.
because
Mhm.
they haven't made the connection, right? They haven't made the connection that yes, they're starting out, but they're
Mhm.
starting to try to build an environment of business. In an
Mhm.
environment of business, advocates are more valuable than almost anything else.
Mhm. Mhm. Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, who would rather have a referral for a good plumber than to go look on the website? Like who?
Exactly. So if you are a plumber that's starting, right, and you're going to go in your second or third call, and somebody goes, look, everybody that I've talked to wanted to charge me all this much for this.
Mhm.
That's a great opportunity for you to say, you know what, I'll take care of it for half of that, or I'll take care of
Mhm.
it for, and you'll do
Mhm.
it. And for
Mhm.
you will probably be a cost or a break even or slightly profit, or it doesn't
Mhm.
really matter, right? Especially if you're trying to build something. And
Well,
here's the
and
other thing.
doing a good job in that
Yeah, you probably want to
is
do a good job.
well, consistently doing a good job in communication, which we should have a whole podcast about, is your best
Yeah.
thing you could do in business.
But in,
Because you will just get referred left and right because
right.
you're above 70% of the businesses just
And,
by doing the basics.
and here's the other thing you want to ask. You want to make sure that you ask. Yeah, sure, no problem. I'll give you the deal as long as you give me a review, as long as you write me a recommendation, as long as you, right? Like, don't be afraid of asking for that exchange,
Mhm.
because
Mhm.
that exchange is how I built a lot of
Mhm.
my recommendations.
Yep,
There
you
was
did
a
it with
time that
me.
I had like actual letters, right? I'm old, so there were actual letters
You're
where
younger than I am.
people are saying, hey, this was fantastic. I recommend it to anybody. And I would show those letters when people were like, I need to know who you are.
Oh, yeah, wow.
And,
Now what do
no,
you do?
still
Because
no
I have
website.
because I have mine on my website, so what do you do now?
I basically send them to LinkedIn, right? Because it's easy for me. They're all collected in there throughout the years.
Mhm.
And uh, again, I'm at a place where like now I just say to people, I will only work if you come referred. So by the time they come referred, that has been done.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, look, I mean,
No, I'm just
like I
kidding.
said, I'm
Just
old and I don't
kidding.
love people. So getting to know new people is not the best. But yeah,
Oh, jeez.
it's been fun.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. See what time it is?
Yes. It's that time.
Do you have any other myths that you wanna talk about that I take and go on tangents?
Let me see. Well, this one, your product doesn't need to appeal to everyone. Like
No.
I said, you need,
No.
in fact, something that's called hyper niching is really taking off.
Mhm.
And it's just essentially become a specialist, right?
Mhm.
Eventually you will find your group of people.
Mhm. Yeah.
Eventually you will find what they need.
Yeah.
We talked about this. You definitely don't need a business plan. That doesn't mean you don't need to plan your business,
Ooh,
right?
tweetable moment.
You don't need a 29-page document that says what the market is and all that crap. You need to know what you're going to do next,
Yeah.
right?
I'm so glad you said that because
You
I have no interest in doing that and never have.
Well, yeah, you only need a business plan. The only
Yeah.
place where you need a business plan is if you're going to have conversations with investors,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
Those are the only people who would potentially give a shit about that. And the thing is, the even then, nowadays, those conversations are becoming lightning fast, right?
Mhm.
Most of the startup pitches that I'm consulting are
Mhm.
doing a startup pitch with 8 slides, and the plan is an 8 slide printout, right? Like that's
Wow.
all you really need.
Yeah.
It's streamlining as well.
Yeah. Perfect.
Okay, so you
So
definitely don't need that.
awesome. So takeaways
Yeah.
for today.
What are your takeaways for today?
That I didn't need my website right away, damn it.
You did it though.
That you made me see things a little differently. Um, and I love that we can banter and challenge each other a little bit. Because I know there's people out there that may have similar thoughts that I do. So I appreciate that we can have that. Um, what is the biggest mistake you see with new business owners?
Yeah, the biggest mistake is when they recognize there's a hole, right? They recognize there's a problem and they don't seek help on that problem. You see, if you know shit about taxes, the $200 you're going to spend having a tax consultation are going to be invaluable
Oh
versus
yeah.
the 50,000 you're going to end up paying later on in penalties, right? Like
Yeah.
it's recognize the places
Yeah.
where you do need to spend the money,
Yeah.
right? But
Yeah.
yeah, that's essentially it. I know that this is a rant of what I admittedly call bullshit on the internet, but the gist of it is, it's a lot easier to start a business than most people think.
Mhm.
It's a lot easier to really get a sense of the concept, right? Is
Mhm.
this doable? Is the only question you need to answer for yourself, right?
Mhm.
If somebody's willing to give you money for one thing you did, right?
Mhm.
At that point, you
Mhm.
have the next layer of problems, which is, was that enough money, right? Is
Mhm.
it is it sufficient for me to do this a lot more in exchange for that money that I got, or what do I need for that money to be a little more?
And you'll get there quick.
You will get there
You
quick
will get there
sometimes,
real quick.
and sometimes that's another tough moment, right? You want to make sure that you don't get killed by the tough moments too.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Growth is harder to manage than not having any clients sometimes.
Yeah. Oh gosh, yeah, absolutely. Okay,
All right. So what do we
good
have next
talk.
week? Well, not next week, but
Next
the next episode.
August 4th, so we're back to our 1st and 3rd until
Yes.
some major holiday comes up. So August
Until
4th,
another vacation comes up.
yeah, we gotta figure out Australia in October.
All right.
If I'll be there in the middle of the night, with my kangaroo next to me on our podcast.
Like
Anyway,
huge spiders.
I know everyone says that. Are you scared of spider? I'm like, why is everyone asking that? And apparently there's huge ones, but
Yeah.
it's never stopped me from traveling,
Good.
maybe to Africa. But okay. So next show is August 4th, if you can freaking believe that. And this is a great guest. So when I decided, when I knew I wanted to be a franchise and I started putting the process together and not knowing what I don't know, I got referred to someone who, to Steve Beagleman with SMB Consulting. And he is a company that helps people become the franchise. So we had a conversation. We'll talk a little bit about that because Steve doesn't just take everyone. There's certain things that you have to have in line where he'll say, "Okay, you're ready. We can get you to the next point." So I'm all about pulling in professionals, putting my ego aside. Um, and so he's going to be talking about what you really need to become a franchise. So if you're interested in that, that'll be August 4th, 9 a.m. Pacific time. He will be coming to us from Philadelphia. And I really appreciate his time taking this time to do that. He's a great storyteller. He's got a great accent, super fun guy.
It's gonna be it's going to be about becoming a franchisor and about whether
Yes.
you can evaluate opportunities in franchising for yourself, right? So
Thank you for
all
clarifying.
so the
Yes.
whole group is covered
Yes, exactly. In every aspect.
in all aspects. Okay.
Marketing, financial, la la la. Yeah. So that's where we're at.
All right.
So,
Well, great.
what are you going to do this weekend to take care of you, Martin?
Sleep.
Okay. That'll work.
What are you doing?
Drinking wine.
That's valid.
No, I'm going with some
Before sleep.
friends to a new winery that's at the Grant House. So I'm super
Nice.
excited because I love the Grant House. And then we're going to go see the Barbie movie.
Oh.
So I'm gonna get my pink on
Get,
because everyone's doing it.
get a double feature with Oppenheimer.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So,
All right.
all
Well,
right.
thank you so much for being here, and we'll
Thanks,
see you
guys.
guys in 2 weeks.
All right. Happy Friday.